not a bad student. Chances are you were never taught how to learn. If you're here for the science news, don't worry, there's still plenty of that to come. In this video, I'm going to share with you some of the best study tips and tricks that I have come up with based on my experience both as a tutor and as a summa cum laude graduate. Hi, my name is Evelyn. I am a science tutor and founder of Spark Your Mind Tutoring. I have a Bachelor of Science degree and I also have experience as a lab technician. Let's dive into the top 6 study tips that I have for you today. The first strategy I have for you today is the see it, write it, say it method. When I say see it, I don't just mean reading over the text or your notes. This is usually the first interaction you have with the material in the classroom or while studying, but you want to actively engage with your notes, highlighting key passages, paying attention to headlines and graphics, and writing your own conclusions and questions off to the side. Which brings me to the second piece, which is writing it. Physically writing your notes can be better than just typing them out. This means you might rewrite your own notes or your teacher's notes, or even create charts and diagrams to help connect the information and represent it in a visual way that will solidify the information even better. The last part is say it. Now, this is by far my favorite study trick. I am a strong believer that if you can teach it, then you know it. This can be done through group studying, talking to someone in your home about what you've learned, or even reciting from memory what you've learned in front of a mirror or to a pet. In college, I spent a lot of time peer tutoring and even talking to myself out loud as if I was teaching someone else the material. I found that this not only helped me remember things better, but I was able to find gaps in knowledge. The key takeaway here is the more ways that you recall what you've learned, the better off you will be when it comes to exam time. That brings me to my second tip: don't cram. I'm sure you've heard this one a lot, but studies show that breaking up the material is much more effective than waiting to the last minute, which can lead to brain overload and poor memory recall. So what should you do instead? Start studying as soon as you know the date of the exam and when you've had all of the information that you need. Let's just say that your test is a week away and you have to cover 5 different chapters. Break up the topics into manageable chunks, leaving the night before your test for one final pass over the material that you've mastered. That brings us to tip 3, proper time management. I cannot stress this one enough. Time management is a crucial life skill that is not only going to help you succeed academically, but is a skill that is going to stick with you for the rest of your life. How do you do this? Use things like planners and calendars. When I was in college, I had a really thick planner that pretty much mapped out almost every hour of my day. That might not be for everyone, but that was necessary for me to be able to stay on top of all of my obligations as well as my exams and projects. When you are studying, set alarms to remind yourself to take a break so you don't burn out. If you find yourself feeling really unmotivated, what you could do is set a timer for, let's just say, 15 minutes. Tell yourself that you're going to study the topic only for that amount of time. If that's all the time you have, great. Once the alarm goes off, then you can take a break. However, you might sometimes find that you're so engrossed and focused on your studying that you continue beyond the time that you allotted for yourself. If you're still having trouble finding the time to actually study, then maybe it's time to look at what your obligations and extracurriculars are and see if there's anything that you can reduce or cut down in order to focus on the things that are most important. That was still difficult for me, so what I did was find odd times to study. Think about little gaps in your day that you might be able to pull out a notebook or pull out some flashcards and quiz yourself. My 4th tip is something that took me a while to learn, and that is to adapt your strategy to different subjects. We know that all of us learn in different ways, but applying the same study tools to all of your subjects may be the reason why you're struggling. Here's the moment where I recognized that this was a problem for me. In college, I had to take organic chemistry, which is notorious for being the class that weeds out biology students. So going into it, I was pretty nervous. I had a reason to be because I completely bombed the first exam. And when I say bomb the exam, I mean I got something in the 20% range. I was sure I was going to fail the course. But when I did some reflection, I realized that I went about studying the completely wrong way for that subject. The moment I switched from passive learning to doing lots of practice problems and writing out reactions and mechanisms, my grades slowly improved and I ended up with an A in the course. This could also mean narrowing your focus. Sometimes a professor or teacher will literally tell you what's going to be on the test. Make sure you take note of that. If there are study guides, use them. A lot of times I would take the study guide, answer all of the questions, and rewrite my notes in a way that perfectly fit into the bullet points that I was expected to know. That will save you time by making sure you only focus on what's actually going to be tested. If you're lucky, you might even have old quizzes or old tests that you can review. A lot of times teachers might reuse questions or they'll word them in a slightly different way. My 5th tip, which I feel like isn't emphasized enough, is quality and quantity of sleep. Now, we all know that sleep is important, but many studies have shown that lack of sleep can really hurt your ability to learn and recall information. So make sure you're getting a good night's rest, especially before the exam, and set aside time to decompress. What I found worked for me was that I would read over my notes one last time before I went to bed at night. It did help me remember things much better. This may be due to the fact that sleep helps our brains integrate and solidify the information that you've learned that day. And if you're the kind of person that likes to review notes immediately before the test and it doesn't work for you, it definitely didn't work for me. Cut that out entirely. A lot of times I would sit in the class and look around and I would see students flipping through their notes frantically, trying to cram in the last bits of information. I found that that really stressed me out and overloaded me with information to the point where I kind of blinked out by the time I looked at the test. My sixth and final tip for you guys is don't be afraid to seek help before it's too late. Go to your teacher or your professor's office hours and ask for support. A lot of schools offer after-school help, peer tutoring, and free tutoring services. Connect with your classmates if group studying is something that benefits you. And finally, in this digital age where we have access to information within seconds, definitely utilize online resources. Watch videos, tutorials, problem workthroughs. There are free textbooks and materials and outlines online that you can find that might present the information in a way that clicks with you better. Feel free to share in the comments your own study tips and tricks and things that may or may not have worked for you. Keep an eye out for my next video where I will discuss the absolute best test-taking strategies.